afternoon, guys. It's Darren from Jace Media right here in Glasgow, and providing the chat this afternoon all the way from Toledo, Ohio, is six-string slinger, Mr. Jeff Kollman. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing good. I love Toledo, and I'm proud of the city, but I got out of there about 25 years ago. So I'd be pumping gas and teaching guitar lessons if I stayed there.
Yeah. But, you know, it's what is Ohio like as a place? Is it nice? Is it got good parts, bad parts?
Toledo is kind of like Detroit with less options.
Yeah.
But it's a big city, you know, it's like 350,000 people, right? And it was a great place to grow up because, you know, Motown was an hour away. We used to go to like all the clubs in Detroit and see the bands from, you know, anybody really, from jazz fusion guys to rock guys to metal. I remember seeing Pantera when they were still playing theaters, and, you know, Soundgarden at the Fox, opening up for Skid Row. I was Andrus Segovia, downtown Detroit. You know, you go out on the outdoor plaza. I can't even remember the names of these places anymore, but it's been a lot of beers since then. Yes. But we see like John McLaughlin, you know, it was just, and Toledo was a great hub between Detroit and Cleveland. Everybody hits those cities in Chicago, so they all hit Toledo on a day off. And so it was a great place to grow up. And man, I had a musician friend down the street from me that he could play guitar like nobody. And I was like 13 and he was 22, and he literally played like Yngwie Malmsteen before Malmsteen came out. Meets Michael Schenker, meets Uli Roth, meets Richie Blackmore. So that was incredible. You know, now there's like 2,700 guitar players in any square mile radius on YouTube, right? Back then there was like freaking, you know, 20. You could literally name your guitar heroes on, you know, 20 fingers, right? Yeah. The obvious Hendrix, Eddie, you know, and then you get into like, you know, Paul Kossoff and these guys and Jimmy Page. And next thing you know, you've named off like 20 guys and you're like, okay, well, who else is there? That's about it.
Who's out there? Yeah, who's out there and who's doing the thing?
Like, you know, we could spend the whole interview just naming players. I don't know if they all write great songs, but man, great guitar playing.
Great guitar players, you know, absolutely.
So growing up in Toledo, you know, between this guy, Chuck Stoll, you know, one of my childhood heroes, the guy I'm telling you about, and my Uncle Mike, who was 15 years older, you know, he would come to my house and go, ooh, check out Robin Trower, Twice Removed from Yesterday. I grew up on, you know, hit radio, listening to like the Four Tops and then, you know, some rock stuff and Ted Nugent. But some of that stuff we didn't know, you know, Gary Moore, Corridors of Power. I'm a 12-year-old kid, like a sponge going, who's Gary Moore? Oh, the guy who played Thin Lizzy, is he on Jailbreak? No, okay. Listen to the record. Holy shit. You know, that was my childhood.
Growing up and doing your thing, you know. So what kind of got you into doing guitar? What was your
Say it again?
What got you into doing guitar? What was your reason for picking up the sixth string and saying,
you know what, I wanted to be a professional football player when I was a kid.
Wow.
You look at how skinny these wrists are, right? I did right. Good thing I made a change, career change. I always had a love for music, and my brother started playing drums. It's really Eddie Van Halen, Alex Van Halen kind of story. Almost the same age difference. And he started playing drums, and he was better at me at the drums. And he already had, you know, he played a little bit as a young kid because my mom's side of the family had some music, as well as my dad's side. So for my birthday, my dad bought me a guitar, and we were off to the races. And we were pretty poor before that. We lived with my mother. It's a whole story, but we lived like gypsy kids. So when Dad got custody of me and Tommy at 12, finally we joined the middle class. You know, he actually bought me a guitar. It was a shit guitar that you couldn't play. But it taught me to like, okay, I'm going to get rid of this guitar, and then I'm going to buy a Hondo 2. And, you know, now I'm learning Rush and AC/DC. And, you know, a year later I'm playing Eruption. And, well, I still can't play Eruption. Everybody else can. Wolfgang Van Halen can, but I can't. No, but
it's tricky.
Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen. And, you know, by the time I was 15, I started, you know, I got a 4-track and started recording. By the time I was 16, while I had, you know, recorded over maybe like, you know, 100 songs that are ready for vocals. And, you know, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I ended up releasing that stuff. It's called Jeff and Tommy Kollman Teen Metal Years. Because a friend of mine said, you know, you should put out a recording of when you guys were 16. Your brother's no longer with us anymore.
Yeah.
It would be really cool to hear this stuff. You know, when I heard Jason Becker Raspberry Jams when he was younger, you know, and honestly, my technique was better then. I didn't have the touch and the maturity, but for sheer shredding,
yeah,
you know, at 16,
you were the man. You were the
I
man.
I was really looking to change history with guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, Eddie did this. Now let's go further. Let's take the super Locrian scale. What if we mix metal with bebop? You know, and that ended up forming the thing like Cosmo Squad. It's a unique thing. You know, there's influences of Dimebag, but there's influences of jazz and, you know, Mozambique and, you know, Afro-Cuban shit. I mean, just barely, just little sprinkles of stuff.
Yeah.
You find your own identity through.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Yeah.
And when you're obviously you're a prolific guitar player, you know, and you've played with some greats, and you know you can shred with the best of them. Yeah, and I think that's it's testament to yourself that you wanted to do and be the best that you can. You know, and obviously a lot of musicians now vie for your service.
Yeah.
You know, which is.
I'll go ahead.
Which, you know, which is testament to you and how good you are and how, you know, and how good you've become. That these guys want to say, come and play on my record, you know, come and play on my tour, you know, right. which is you know for a kid, you know, from Toledo, Ohio, you know,
yeah.
now in the major leagues, you know, playing with the big guys.
Yeah.
And a respected musician yourself.
Right. What I would say, because I meet a lot of guitar players and, you know, they have certain guitar heroes and they're kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I was sort of one-dimensional back then, like the record I'm talking about, Teen Metal Years when I was 16, or Edwin Dare when I was 18, 19. The only gig I could have parlayed from that maybe would be like Dream Theater. So at some point I matured, because the guys like, you know, Phil Mogg and Glenn Hughes and the people that I ended up playing with, Alan Parsons.
Yeah.
If I played like I did when I was 16 to 20, I wouldn't have got those gigs. No way. You know, I got the gig with Alan because I can play, but I can sing a little bit, right? And he has me lead sing and harmonies. Without that, he'd rather have a guy that could sing. So I never saw that coming. With Phil Mogg, if you shred like Yngwie Malmsteen, he's not interested in it. He doesn't want it, you know? Yeah. Even though George Bellis, who's one of the great shredders, they worked together, and maybe he loved what he did. But I remember playing fast on one song, This Is the Life off Mogg Way.
Okay.
And Phil almost kind of went, okay, you know, that's enough of that. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, don't do that on every song. Thank God you didn't, you know. So, and then Glenn Hughes likes the funk, man. If you can't play funk, forget about it. You know, he sees all those European metal guys. He's like, you know, and excuse my French, he would see some pointy, like BC Rich guitar that's like over the top pointy, right? Some kind of death metal guys. And Glenn would say to me, he'd say, Kollman, look at that. That cunt couldn't play funk at gunpoint. You know, metal guys, I mean, I love Judas Priest, but you hear him play acoustically, they're like, thank God, you know, Rob Halford is Rob Halford, but, you know, they don't know how to be graceful.
No.
You know, and metal guys can't, you know, they don't.
Yeah.
Right? It's
almost like a clunk, you know, metal guys just plug it in and they turn it up and they go, let's go. You know?
I love metal guys. Like Dimebag is one of my favorite. And I'm sure if he grabbed an acoustic, he'd make it sound sexy as fuck. Right?
Yeah.
Eddie Van Halen, I mean, he's not a metal guy. He's like the greatest guitar hero in history, right? All you have to hear is, you know. you know, and he digs in. It's like, wow, that shit is swinging.
Stand back in amazement, you know.
That's, yeah, Eddie, you just go. And Steve I once said recently, after Eddie passed, October 6th, rest in peace. He said, you know, you're an idiot if you compare yourself to Eddie Van Halen. And, you know, Steve I is honestly one of the people, if you look at his body of work as a player and Eddie and all the things he's done with the guitar innovation, he may be one of the few guys that you could compare to Eddie. Yeah. But he knows the history of how things happen. And he knows the shock that Eddie brought to the world and how he changed guitar. And, you know, Steve's smart. And he's like, yeah, you're an idiot if you compare yourself to Eddie. It's amazing.
Yeah. You look at the times. I mean, I remember way back, I went to Donington, Monsters of Rock, 1984.
Yeah.
And I saw Gary Moore, Ozzy Osbourne, Van Halen, AC/DC on the one bill.
That's some of the greatest guitar playing in history.
Yeah. You know, and you think, wow, you know?
Yeah.
Incredible.
You know, I could try to play Beating Around the Bush right now, but it's not going to swing like Angus and Malcolm.
No.
And what's interesting is the two of them have a different swing on that song. You know, yeah. Malcolm plays it a little straighter. And, I mean, Malcolm Young is probably the greatest rhythm guitar player in history.
God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Angus, I mean, I tried to imitate those moves once. I couldn't even, I can imitate Angus, you know, with the solo. I couldn't, you know, but he never repeats himself, and he's done how many records and how many solos? It's just unbelievable. And then add those movements around stage.
Yeah.
It's like, Christ, I can barely play Standing Still Live. You know, it's pretty humbling.
That's what happens, Jeff. It's a good Glasgow boy. Angus Young, big Glasgow boy, you know.
Right. And Gary Moore, I mean, yeah, Gary Moore, it was like he played every show like it was going to be his last. And eventually that was his last, you know. Just a lot of guys are hit and miss. I think you could almost name anybody and they've had bad moments. Eddie, certainly, you know, it's hard to be Eddie Van Halen. But I would say the two guys that come to mind that are always on fire, and I've never seen a bad show, would be Stevie Ray Vaughan and Gary Moore. That just like, no matter what, you know, Django Reinhardt, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we don't have films from then, so there could be times Django's hitting it hard. You know. And if you want to talk about a guitar hero, man, just go to Django Reinhardt. There's nothing else. I mean, he just destroys you with two fingers. Done. Yeah,
and the rest is history. You know, you just step back.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, what's life like for you at the moment? What's going down?
You know what's interesting? Stay, guitar, stay. So we own a house in Los Angeles, and you know, the whole year, like every other musician, and you've heard this story, you know, everybody's tour stopped. I mean, I had like 8 months straight. I was going out with Alan Parsons, and then this famous Japanese artist, Yazawa. We were on our first leg. We had just finished February 14th. We were going to start up March 1st cruise, and then, you know, the Ryman Theater. And next thing you know, we're going to Italy, Spain, France, you name it. And then I'd be in Japan for 2 months. All that shut down, right? March 13th. And we have 2 daughters. So my wife's like, you know what, LA, you know, high school in LA is just, it's like juvenile detention center. And now with Gavin Newsom, the politician, you know, they let people out of prison because they're worried they're going to get COVID. It's like, really? You know, I feel sorry for homeless people in the streets, like, you know, Vietnam vets or any veteran. But my wife used to work in psych. She's retired since we had kids. But, you know, she understands the problems with the state of California and the homeless situation. And it's pretty difficult, you know. So to summarize, we decided to buy a home outside of California. So we kind of moved back to the Midwest. I don't really tell everybody exactly where, but it's between Chicago and Toledo, right? I call it witness protection. It's a nice Midwestern life on a golf course. It's safe, clean, awesome, near Lake Michigan, perfect. So, you know, during the lockdown, I mean, I got busy with this, right? The new record.
Yeah.
Got that finished. We bought a second home. Great. so between those two things and refinancing California, making sure the kids are in a good public school, you know, they're 13 and 15. I'd rather save money for college. You know, if I was making, you know, 600 grand a year, great, send them to private school like everybody else. But that comes with another set of problems because then the private school have it made. Some of them are dealing cocaine. You know, it's like I grew up in a rough Midwest upbringing, not too bad. You know, I never got my ass kicked in school, but it was, you had to watch yourself. And my girl, I have daughters, so I wanted to be better for them.
Yeah.
You know? And the schools they go to are the best. There's a radio broadcasting station and a television broadcasting station in the school. That's all you have to say. You know, they can study Japanese and then take a summer trip to Japan. California schools, they don't even have lunchrooms. You know, you sit outside on a park bench. And when they don't have rooms, they have these little, what are they called? They're kind of like little mobile modular homes. Yeah. Like you can see at the YMCA for the yoga class. It's like the tax dollars aren't going in the right place. The right place, yeah, absolutely. No music program for the kids. Oh, we cut that. And all the money goes to the teachers' pensions. Teachers got it made there. They retire, they're set. The money they make, it's ridiculous. Yeah. You go to the Midwest and it's like, okay, the streets are paved. The shit's safe. The schools are great. In the inner cities, they're even better because they're helping these, you know, kids out that never had a chance. Yeah. You know?
But I guess that's the thing, though, Jeff. It's like, you know, when you go to LA and you know, and these places where you know the expectation is high, but the reality is zero. When you try and give your kids the best you can, and it's the system that lets you down. You know, I was talking to Gary Beers a couple of weeks back, and he said, you know, he lives in San Fernando Valley, and he says, what I want to do, I want to move closer to the sea, so I can give the kids the kind of life that I had. You know, I get out every morning, stepped onto the beach, and it was just heaven. Yeah. So I get, you know, so I get where you're coming from. You know, having that kind of life comes with its own set of hassle. Yeah. You know?
Yep. So I go back and forth. I was just in LA last week. I have the house there. The interesting thing about where I am right now, witness protection, I'm 6 minutes, literally 6 minute drive from the beach. And the beach looks like Malibu, Zuma, with better dunes. Wow. So it's like, you know, it's fantastic. We moved to Nashville for a year to try that thing in 2017. And my wife and kids hated it. Actually, my daughter said, Dad, the school's actually too white. You know, she's used to culture. Yeah. We have Armenian friends and Japanese friends and black friends, and everything's cool in LA, you know? I mean, it's gnarly in South Central, right? With the gangbangers, and it's gnarly in Boyle Heights with the Mexican gangs. They get bored, they get drunk, and they're shooting at cars from the freeway. We're at a time where we can't discuss this stuff. It's okay. There's, you know, 30 murders a weekend in Chicago. Do I go there? I'm careful when I'm there, you know. Yeah. It is what it is.
It's just, I think it's life all over, Jeff. You know, I think that, you know, Scotland, Glasgow has its own set of hassles. You know, London, you know, the multiple stabbings, you know, with young kids, 15, 16, 17, you know, and then you get your, like you see, your gun culture, your drug culture, you know, so I think it's the same everywhere, you know. Yeah. Different than our day. When I grew up, you know, you strutted about with your trainers on, and you just didn't give a shit. Now it's all about, you know, the date rape culture. It's all about drugs. It's all about, you know, getting mugged, and you think, wow, you know, it's so different, you know, and our now than it was to our day. You know, just as you were talking, I went to see my dad's friend was a head of security in a place called the Glasgow Apollo. Yeah. Right. And he said to my dad, "Oh, there's a band on tonight. Get the big man down there." I'm a 6'5" long streak of piss with a wedge haircut, you know. Right. Stoats down to the gig, knocks on the big blue door, goes in by the band, by the manager, shoves me through the curtain. Now the stage is about 10 foot high, so you're like this with sore neck. Yeah. Lights go down. This band comes on, shredding the place up. AC/DC, 1979. And I'm like, wow, these guys are brilliant. And I'm 12, and these guys have got cut off denim jackets with tattoos and big hair and beards. And I'm like, fuck me, man, this is cool.
Yeah.
So he says, how did you enjoy that? Brilliant. You staying for the main act? And I went, I've got school tomorrow. Okay. I said, who is it? And he said, oh, it's the Rolling Stones. And I said, never fucking heard of them. I'm off to my bed. And off I go. So I gets home, my dad's like, did you walk home on your own? Yeah. From where we lived to Glasgow city centre was maybe about 6-7 miles. And he said, you're home early? I said, yeah. I says, this band AC/DC, they were fantastic.
Yeah.
He said, what about the main act? Never heard of them. A band called the Rolling Stones. And my dad said, fucking arsehole. The Rolling Stones. I went, no, I never heard of them, Dad. So I just left. You know, the place was going immense. You know, and you were safe to go to a gig and just, you know, watch your idols do their thing.
Yeah.
Now it's so more difficult. And I think you're right. You know, when people say, oh, yeah, I live in California, I live in Vegas, I live, you know, and you're like, yeah, but it comes at a price.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
A few years back, I took my wife to Vegas for her 50th. And we went to see Robin McCauley at the Hard Rock Hotel. The next day, I said to her, we're taking a road trip. Where are we going? I said, it's fine. I had a little Wayne's World car, set off on our merry way. 4.5 hours later, we're in San Bernardino.
Yeah.
She's like, where the fuck is this? And I said, well, this is San Bernardino. She's on her phone and she went, does this not have the most dangerous prison in the world? I said, yeah, but it's 2 miles that way, it's fine. So we went to the Glen Helen Amphitheatre to see Iron Maiden.
Yep.
And she's like, the worst fucking concert ever. All right then. I'm like, metal gods, you know, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But it just shows you the different culture, you know, where you are in the world and what you do, you know. So,
you know, discussing Iron Maiden, you know, in 1982, Bruce Dickinson joined the band. And I already knew the second record and went back to the first record. And I love Paul Di'Anno. And then we go to the local record store, which they don't have them anymore, right? There was Boogie Records, Peaches, and another store. And maybe we went to Boogie Records. And there was probably about 40 of us kids, you know, going in there to get our stuff signed. And I remember, you know, seeing Bruce, and I knew none of us knew who Bruce was yet because he hadn't played in town. Funny thing was Iron Maiden, man, I almost thought, are these guys local now? Because they're opening up for everybody at the Toledo Sports Arena. Yeah. It'd be like Judas Priest, the Scorpions, and Iron Maiden. This band, that band, and Iron Maiden. You know, it was like, so it was an exciting time back then. And I'm thinking, wow, 40 of us. You know, now it would be like they'd have to shut the whole city down.
Yeah,
if those guys went to sign autographs.
Yeah, you know, and I think now it's with the pandemic and what's happening in the world, I guess stuff like live streams, you know, and virtual gigs, you know, and meet and greets, they're the things now that the bands want.
Yeah.
Because it's notoriety of the band, you know, and of the individual vocalist or like yourself, the guitar player, you know, and I think that's what at the moment what we're heading for, you know, the virtual live stream, you know, the pay-per-view gig, you know. I will say one thing though, like for me as a reviewer, Christ, I've never been busier. There's so much music coming out, you know, every day. You know, and as I say, I reviewed your album day before yesterday, and you know, and I watched the video, you know, Super String Theory. I'm like, wow, just incredible. You know, just a fantastic,
cool
piece of music. You know, just quite.
Yeah, that's a bit of like AC/DC. You know.
Yeah, it's got the riff, it's got the, you know, and it's got the beat, and you're thinking, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it just hits you straight in the face. It's not like building up. Straight from the first chord, it's boom, and you think, wow, that's incredible. you know. And I obviously reached out to your PR guys and I said, let's get something going.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it's refreshing to, you know, to listen to an instrumental that's got so much meaning. You know, there's so many great songs in it. You know, I think I've got about 8 standouts, you know, Mass Exodus, Supersting Theory, Ghostly. My favourite, Monte Catini Waltz. It's just an incredible piece of music. Just fantastic, you know. Got Easter Heaven, just fantastic. And I wanted to try and connect and, you know, and get to chat to you about, you know, what gives you the ideas to make these records and make them how you make them, you know?
You know, I've always been creating since I was a kid, like I said, when I was 16 and with my brother. And there's probably a good 30 records, not even as a sideman, but just bands that I'm a part of. And, you know, I think for me, I want to leave a legacy of music with a lot of material.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of guys like, I think they have maybe low self-esteem that they can't sell any records. And I don't even care. It's like this stuff, I have to put it out, you know? And I really, as a kid growing up, besides all the obvious rock music, I love classical music. I love jazz. Then I really got into like movie music. You know, you go see Scarface and wow, the way the scene really creates a mood. And I didn't really set out to be an instrumental guitar player. I always loved working with singers. But at the same time, in between working with singers, you just, you know, I could write a song right now and just start playing and, you know.
Yeah.
I might go back and go, oh, that first 2 chords are cool, but the rest, and then, well, where's my melody? You know, maybe the melody's hiding in there. We don't know.
Yeah.
And I kind of treat it like it's an interesting challenge too. It's kind of like you leave your house, your home base, and you take this way to go somewhere, and then you head this way. And it's easy to get away from the home base, right? You can get lost.
Yeah.
But now you need a sensible way to get back, right? Oof. And that's kind of like the way I write. One of the few songs that doesn't do that is Superstring Theory, where it's like, hey, I thought really specifically on this one, let's just modulate up. So instead of going, wrong chord, right? Instead of going to some bridge that's totally different, I just went up to D, same chords, right? Other songs aren't like that. Most of my songs kind of take you on a journey, and it's like, ooh, and it's easy to get away. Like your Ghostly, you got E, right?
It's a
now, a lot of, like if it was Pink Floyd, they might play C, F, E, and that's the whole song. Yeah. But I'm like, I want to head in a few directions. Let's see how far we can take this. So, So what's interesting is right? Now there was like, how do I get back to, you know? Well, I got to A here, so I can get back to E. And the interesting thing, and a lot of people aren't going to pick up on this, but there's a similar movement. It's like when you hear Shining a Crazy Diamond, that Floyd record.
Yeah.
They keep having this reoccurring theme that happens in the record. It's like, I already heard that song earlier. Oh, it's this part of it, you know?
Merging into something else. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So there's 3 songs that have this theme, and people aren't even going to know it. Let me see. Ghostly, you know, it does this. Right. So this. Yeah. And then there's Darkness Resides has this. That's kind of a hard technique because you're picking.
Yes.
And then here's the same changes. Sort of. Then it went somewhere else. But it had the G to B flat to A. And then there's another song in there that does that too, sort of. So there's this like, oh, we have this thing. And I think people will hear it subconsciously.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think, you know, what I do is I play the album record through once, and then I put the headphones on and I just get lost kind of in, you know, what the record is, where it's going to take me. And you've got that feel. It takes you on a journey. You know, you've got your Superstring Theory is a right banging track. It takes you there. And then you get into Ghostly, you get into Insomnia, you get into Easter Heaven, where they take you on a journey, you know, and you sit back and you're like, yeah, I really enjoyed that, because and what I find that you get lost in the chords.
Yeah.
You're like, wow.
What's interesting is like with sorry, go ahead.
And then it finishes, and then you think there must be something more, you know, and then it moves into the next track, and you're like, wow. It's almost as though Easter Heaven's finished, and then you move on to So Long Ago, or you know, or when you get into The Darkness Resides, because it kind of molds its way. Yeah, and that's what I found interesting about the record.
Yeah. It's like if you had movies, right? Instead of one long movie, it's like these little shorts, but the whole thing flows. That's the trick, you know. It's easy to go. I hear instrumental records. The guy's like, okay, I'm going to do my Iron Maiden. Okay, then I got my country song, and I'm like, it's cool that you can
switch, yeah.
And then I got my blues, and I'm like, oh God. You know, either, you know, the thing is, me and Steve Lukather to talk about this. This is these LA elitist blues guys, right? Yeah. Gary Moore was the last fucking great blues player, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, those guys, they do a great job and they pay a great tribute. But I don't need to hear the same fucking changes anymore, you know?
Yeah.
After Muddy Waters, Son House, Freddie King, Albert King, B.B. King, then Stevie, right? The white boy playing the black man's music.
Black music, yeah.
You know, a buddy will come to me and go, hey, have you heard this kid? You know, and he's like this. And it's just like, come on, really? I know, you know, they're trying to follow Joe Bonamassa, who's trying to do Eric Johnson and do the blues too. And Joe's done great things to keep the guitar alive, and he's got soul, and he's great. But it's like, man, I just, you know, if I play a blues, like I did a tribute to Gary Moore called Silence in the Corridor. And I mean, you know, it's a minor blues, but then there's changes that are like, oh, you know, and then we have to walk down, right? And then, so there's enough kind of variation in the chords and playing with the changes. It's kind of like still got the blues. It's not, you know. I love Gary Moore doing, but you know, he's got like, tuning's optional, right? Now, if that was REM, they would go. And they just repeat those 4 chords. That's the whole song.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of music, you got to get into the lyric, because the groove is just, and the chords are the same campfire chords that, you know, everybody uses, right? I can go, oh, you want this? So if you take that REM thing, you do it as a waltz, you play D minor, tuning's optional, sorry. And then you start playing G major, put the G in the bass. Now I'm starting to get teary-eyed, right? And then you start, you know, major 7, sexy as hell, F major 7, B minor 7-5-5. Woo! Now we have something, right?
I'm swooning, Jeff. I'm swooning.
And things like, let's see, he did one where the chord. Now, it wasn't. What was it? It was. There was a. Somewhere in the song later on, he got a little like, ooh, kind of, you know. This is the kind of stuff I look for. So if I'm going to play a blues, I'm not going
right.
to, and there's nothing wrong with those guys going, you know, whatever. I love it, you know, jams in the bar. I'm sure they listen to go, oh, he's not in the pocket. And I appreciate when cats can really
play it. Yeah.
Like, if you listen to Eric Clapton swing that, it's like, oh, it's got a thing, you know. So I have the utmost respect for it. But for my writing these days, like, I just want to like go somewhere people aren't always going and not so predictable.
No, that's great. And I think that's what you get. I think the new record is just it's a little diamond. It's got so many variations in it. It's got, you know, the blues. It's got the rock. It's got the taking you off in another place. And I think it's just a real good mix. I sent you my review. I hope you got it.
Yeah, I was just kind of glancing over it just before I saw it, like 5 minutes before. I'm like, shit, now I'm nervous. I got to get a beer because I didn't see this. I should have looked at it.
But, you know, I think it's a reflection of the reviewer, you know, as to how, because what I like to do is I like to get inside the front row as if I'm standing watching you do it. And that's how I do my review. A lot of people go, oh, instrumentals. But you know what? There's a skill in there. There's a certain way about it that takes you off to another place. And there's an appreciation for the musician, you know, and I think that's what you get with East of Heaven. It's just a classy piece of music. I must congratulate you on it. I think it's going to do well.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to chat, Jeff. It's been great sharing some stories, just doing the do. The video will go to Australia. It'll go to America. It'll go to Europe. We get about 120,000 hits every month. So you're like me. Your ugly mug will be seen far and wide. So it's all good. It's all good. But I hope you're safe. Wife and kids are safe.
Yep.
I'd love to chat to you again in a couple of months when hopefully all of this is out. COVID's gone and we can do stuff. Hopefully you'll get to Glasgow.
I got to Glasgow once. I was playing with Michael Schenker on the G3 tour with Joe Satriani and Uli Roth. And that was maybe 1998.
Well, my big buddy's the bass player.
Yeah.
Big Chris Glenn.
Oh yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. Lives in Glasgow.
Well, when you talk to him, tell him one of my favorite rhythm sections is him and Ted McKenna doing Assault Attack, MSG. And you know what's crazy is I saw Chris, and first I saw Michael walk through the lobby of the Intercontinental Hotel in Japan. I stayed there for like 2 months at a time. And I know Graham and I know Robin McCauley. I've never met Chris or Ted, and I know Michael. Yeah. Michael kind of freaks me out a little bit, but that's another story. But I saw the guys getting in a van. I thought, oh man, I should go say hi because fuck, you know, they're all my heroes. And Robin McCauley, and and I know Gary Barden because he toured with us in '98. So shit, I know 5 of the 7 guys in the band, and I would have loved to have met Chris and Ted. And I thought, well, they're probably leaving because they're getting in a van. It's cool. I'll see them later tonight. And then Ted passed away, right? He had a hernia operation that went wrong, and I thought, fuck, man, I should have said hello because they're one of my favorite. You never know. You just never know, Jeff. You know. The rhythm section of, and just the bass, and he's always him and Ted, man, what is it? Brilliant. I can't remember the song anymore. Yeah. Anyway, I love all that stuff, and listen, say hi to Chris. I certainly will. Tell him I want to hire for a track sometime. I certainly will. I will chat to him the next couple of days and tell him we were chatting. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Jeff. All right, David, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Let's keep in touch. I'll maybe ping you in a couple of months and we'll have another chat, see how the record's going.
Yeah.
Let's hope you've not been shot in LA. And this is Darren with Jace Media in conversation with six-string slinger Jeff Kollman, saying thanks for your time, Jeff. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Take it easy, and we'll speak soon.
Stay healthy. Cheers.
Cheers, brother. Cheers.